The first time I saw Mark, I thought my heart had forgotten how to beat properly. It was in the crowded, aromatic chaos of a local coffee shop, the daily grind. I was fumbling with my wallet, trying to extract a $5 bill while balancing a laptop bag on my shoulder, when a deep, calm voice behind me said, "I've got it." I turned, and there he was. Mark wasn't classically handsome in a movie star way, but he had a presence that commanded the quiet space around him. He had kind, hazel eyes that crinkled at the corners when he offered a small, tentative smile, and a steadiness in his posture that suggested he never got flustered. He was holding a $10 bill out to the barista, gesturing toward my latte. "Oh, no, you really don't have to," I stammered, my face flushing. I was Sarah, a freelance graphic designer who lived in yoga pants and oversized sweaters, and men like Mark, men in crisp, dark-wash jeans and well-fitting jackets that hinted at a life of order and success, didn't usually pay for my coffee. "Consider it an investment in preventing a wallet avalanche," he said, his smile widening just a fraction. That was it. That was the moment the universe tilted. We ended up sharing a table, talking for an hour about everything and nothing. He was a structural engineer, a builder of things meant to last. I was an artist, a creator of things meant to evoke. We were opposites, and yet, the conversation flowed as if we were two parts of a single, long-interrupted thought. That single coffee turned into dinner, which turned into weekend hikes, which turned into lazy Sunday mornings with crosswords and his arms around me. For 2 years, we built a life. It was a comfortable, beautiful life. Mark was everything I had ever wanted. Reliable, kind, fiercely intelligent, and he loved me with a quiet, unwavering intensity that I sometimes felt I didn't deserve. He remembered my irrational fear of seagulls, he learned how to make my favorite childhood pasta dish, and he always kissed me goodbye, even if he was just running to the hardware store. But there was a shadow in our paradise, a small, cold knot in the pit of my stomach that I tried to ignore. It was about the future. My dream. Since I was a little girl, I had wanted to be a painter. Not just a graphic designer doing logos for local businesses, but a real artist, with work in galleries. I had spent my teen years and 20s filling sketchbooks, my early 30s building a client base for stability, but the yearning to create something that was purely mine never faded. I had a series of paintings I'd been working on in secret for over a year, vibrant, emotional abstracts based on the California coastline. My dream was to have a solo exhibition. I'd mentioned it to Mark, of course, in passing. "Wouldn't it be amazing to have a show one day?" I'd say, my voice light, disguising the depth of the longing. He'd squeeze my hand and say, "Your work is amazing, Sarah. Of course you could." But then he'd pivot. "Have you thought about doing more digital prints? The passive income from your online store was really great last quarter." He wasn't being dismissive. He was being practical. Mark lived in a world of load-bearing walls and safety factors. Art, to him, was a lovely hobby, a side hustle, an unstable and unpredictable venture. He loved me, but I don't think he ever truly understood the artist's soul that thrived inside me. He saw my dream as a risky financial gamble, not a fundamental need, like air or water. The catalyst came on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. We were at his impeccably clean, modern apartment. He'd never fully moved into my more chaotic, color-splashed house, and we were talking about our 5-year plan. It was a conversation we'd been having more frequently. Marriage, maybe a dog, definitely a house with a bigger yard. "And you'll probably be running your own design firm by then," he said, slicing a tomato with surgical precision for a salad. "You've got the client list for it. We could even look at properties with a separate office space." I took a deep breath. This was my opening. "Actually, Mark, I've been thinking about my art. My paintings. There's a gallery downtown, the Crimson Door, and they have an open call for new artists for a solo feature next spring. I want to submit my portfolio." He put the knife down. The silence was heavier than I expected. "A solo feature? That's a huge commitment, Sarah." "I know. It's what I've always wanted." "The gallery takes a 50% commission," he said, his engineer's mind immediately latching onto the numbers. "And the upfront costs for framing, marketing, the opening night, we'd be looking at several $1,000s with no guaranteed return. Most artists don't even make that back." "It's not about the money," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "It's about the accomplishment. It's about seeing my work on a wall, having people experience it." "Honey, I know you're passionate," he said, his tone gentle but firm, the way one might speak to a child dreaming of being an astronaut. "But passion doesn't pay the mortgage. Your design business is solid, profitable. This painting thing, it's a wonderful outlet. But making it a primary focus, it's just not a sound life decision. Not for the future we're building together. The future we're building together. The words should have felt warm, inclusive. Instead, they felt like a cage. He was building a future for us, but his blueprint had no room for the most essential part of me. In that moment, the small, cold knot in my stomach turned to ice. He didn't see my dream as a cornerstone of our life, he saw it as a structural flaw. The argument that followed was quiet and devastating. There was no yelling, only a painful, widening chasm of misunderstanding. I felt unseen. He felt I was being impulsive. We went to bed that night with our backs to each other, a first in our 2 years. For the next week, a heavy silence hung between us. We went through the motions, texts about groceries, shared dinners where we discussed the news, but the easy warmth was gone. I felt like I was mourning. I was mourning the man I thought understood me completely, and I was mourning the dream I feared I would have to bury to keep him. Then, the email arrived. It was from Elena, the owner of the Crimson Door Gallery. The subject line read, "Submission Review, Sarah Miller." My hand shook so violently I could barely click it. "Dear Sarah," it began. "Thank you for submitting your portfolio for our New Horizons series. We were absolutely captivated by the emotional depth and technical mastery of your Pacific Echoes collection. We would be thrilled to offer you the featured artist slot for our April exhibition." I read the email 5 times. They loved it. They wanted it. They were offering me a contract. My dream was no longer a fantasy, it was a signed, sealed, and delivered reality, sitting right there in my inbox. Tears of pure, unadulterated joy streamed down my face. My first instinct was to call Mark. I picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over his name. But then I remembered the look on his face, the sound of his voice. It's just not a sound life decision. The joy curdled into a painful, conflicted ache. This was the best news of my life, and I couldn't share it with the man I loved because he didn't believe in it. He didn't believe in me. That's when the idea began to form. It was crazy, audacious, and completely out of character for me. I wasn't a confrontational person. I avoided drama, but this felt bigger than a simple argument. This was about the trajectory of my life. If I let this moment pass, if I quietly signed the contract and told him later, it would always be my thing, separate from our life. It would be a concession. I didn't want a concession, I wanted a partner. The plan was simple, terrifying, and utterly unexpected. I called Elena back, my voice shaking with a mixture of excitement and nerves. I accepted the offer. Then, I asked her a question, a strange, unconventional request. She was silent for a moment, then, to my immense relief, she laughed and agreed. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of secret activity. I spent every free moment in my studio, putting the final touches on the paintings, working with a framer, and coordinating with Elena. All the while, I maintained the quiet, slightly strained normalcy with Mark. He knew I was busy with a big design project, and he seemed relieved that I'd dropped the talk of the gallery. The night of the exhibition arrived. My stomach was a tangled nest of electric eels. I had told Mark one had a high-profile client dinner I couldn't miss, and that I'd meet him later at his place. I wore a simple black dress, my hands clammy. The Crimson Door Gallery was buzzing with people. Soft lighting illuminated the white walls, making my vibrant paintings seem to glow with an inner life. Strangers stood before them, tilting their heads, discussing brushstrokes and color palettes. It was surreal. Elena gave me a proud, reassuring squeeze on the arm. Then, I saw him. Mark walked in exactly on time, looking handsome and confused. I had texted him 20 minutes earlier, telling him my client dinner had ended early and asking him to meet me at the gallery, giving him the address with no other context. I'd said it was a surprise. He was scanning the crowd, probably looking for me, his brow furrowed. He was so out of place here, among the art world crowd with their dramatic glasses and expressive gestures. He was an anchor in a sea of butterflies. I took a deep breath, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I felt lightheaded. This was it. I walked towards him, my heels clicking softly on the polished concrete floor. "Sarah," he said, his confusion deepening when he saw my dress. "What's going on? What is this place?" I took his hand. It was warm and familiar, a stark contrast to the cold fear gripping my own. "I have something to show you," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I led him through the crowd. He was still looking at me, not at the walls. Then, we stopped in front of the largest painting in the collection, a tumultuous, beautiful explosion of blues and greens and foamy whites I had titled, The Foundation. Mark, I said, forcing my voice to be steady. I lied. There was no client dinner. His eyes finally left my face and traveled to the painting. He stared at it for a long moment, his head cocked. I saw his eyes flick to the small placard next to it. The Foundation, by Sarah Miller. I watched the realization dawn on his face. It was a slow, seismic shift. His eyes widened, his jaw went slack. He looked from the placard to my face, then back to the painting, his gaze sweeping over it as if seeing it for the first time. He took a half step back, his grip on my hand tightening unconsciously. Sarah, this is, you. He stammered. This is yours. I just nodded, my throat too tight to speak. He pulled his hand from mine and took another step back, his eyes frantically scanning the room, taking in the other paintings, the crowd of people, the reality of the situation crashing down on him. He saw the other placards, all bearing my name. He saw people looking at my work, discussing my art. The expression on his face was one of complete and total stupefaction. It was more than surprise. It was a fundamental recalibration of his understanding of who I was and what I was capable of. He had seen my sketches, my small canvases propped up in the corner of my studio, but he had never seen them like this, framed, lit, commanding respect and attention in a professional space. He had never seen my dream made manifest. He was, as the title says, completely stunned. For a full minute, he just stood there, silent and unmoving, his mind visibly reeling. The noise of the gallery seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of us in a bubble of profound, world-altering silence. I could see the gears turning in his head, connecting the dots, my secretive behavior, the big project, my hurt from our argument. He was realizing that I hadn't given up. I had doubled down, I had done the very thing he had deemed unsound, and I had succeeded spectacularly. He finally turned to look at me, and the stunned expression softened into something else, something complex and raw. It was a mixture of awe, shame, and dawning, overwhelming pride. You did all this. He whispered, his voice thick with emotion. By yourself, without telling me. I tried to tell you, I said softly, tears finally welling in my eyes. But you didn't want to hear it. You saw a risk. I saw my life. I needed you to see it, too. Not as a sketch or an idea, but as this. I gestured to the room around us. I needed you to see that my dream isn't a flimsy fantasy. It's as real and as strong as any bridge you've ever designed. And I did it. With or without your approval, I did it. He flinched at the words, with or without your approval, and I knew they had hit their mark. He looked back at the Foundation, and a single tear traced a path down his cheek. It was the first time I had ever seen him cry. I'm so sorry, Sarah, he breathed out, the words laden with a weight I could feel. I am so sorry. I was an idiot, a blind, practical idiot. He reached for my hands again, holding them tightly. This is incredible. This is more than incredible. I had no idea. I never let myself see. He shook his head, unable to finish. He spent the next hour walking through the entire exhibition, studying every single painting with an intensity I'd never seen from him before. He asked me questions, not about cost or commission, but about my process, my inspiration, what I was trying to convey. He was seeing the artist, not the balance sheet. At the end of the night, after the crowd had thinned out, we stood again before the Foundation. He put his arm around me, pulling me close. You were right, he said into my hair. I was trying to build a future for us that was safe and secure, but I forgot to leave room for the soul. Your soul. I am stunned, Sarah. Not just by this, he gestured around the gallery, but by your courage. To do this, to show me like this. It was the most unexpected, powerful thing anyone has ever done for me. You forced me to see you. The real you. And she is magnificent. That night marked a turning point in our relationship, a fundamental reshaping of its foundation. It wasn't built just on comfort and love anymore, but on a new, profound respect. Mark became my biggest advocate, not just my loving partner. He helped me with the logistical plans for the show, using his analytical mind to help me track sales and expenses, but he never again questioned the intrinsic value of the art itself. The opening night was a success. I sold 3 paintings, including The Foundation, to a collector from San Francisco. But the greatest reward wasn't the check or the reviews. It was the look in Mark's eyes every time he introduced me. This is my girlfriend, Sarah, he would say, his chest swelling with pride. She's the featured artist. I did something unexpected that night. I risked everything, my relationship, my heart, my pride, to show the man I love the truest, most essential part of myself. And in doing so, I didn't just stun him. I rebuilt us, stronger and more beautiful than before, on a foundation that finally, truly, included all of me.